Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode for the Coaching Conversations podcast. Now, we are on Stitcher, we are on iTunes, and multiple different channels. Please check us out. Now, one of the things that you'll get out of our podcast episodes is a lot of content, a lot of strategy. It's not fluff, it's not concept, yet we really want you to engage with the content and let us know your feedback. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. If there's topics you'd love to have us address, we would love to share them with you. Let us know your impact and let us know your feedback. As the workplace evolves, and certainly as artificial intelligence evolves, something interesting is happening, but quite frankly has been happening in the workplace for decades. We tend to get up in the morning, we tend to go to work, we do our jobs, and then anything outside of that becomes what? It becomes almost, for a lack of a better description, a nuisance. In addition to, when we ask people that we have a major amount of change coming our way, what happens? Do we greet that warmly? Do we get defensive? Do we do those things in terms of some of the things we need to do to go above and beyond the call of duty for our jobs? Typically not. And so what happens is that we get into a rut. We get into a situation where we want to, as best we can, maintain the norm. Stay with what we're currently doing. Anything in addition to that feels like a disruption. It feels in addition to what we're already doing. And I think the way we think is really what changes our behaviors. So I want to share this with you very simply. You know, I read probably the best book, one of the top 3 books I've ever read. And that is, the number 1 book I've read is Insights by Tasha Yarrick. The second book is Grit by Angela Duckworth. And the third one, which I read over 20 years ago, is Stress for Success. And it changed the way I think if you put it into practice. You know, a lot of times these books don't really serve a purpose unless we put what they teach us into action. And a lot of times it's so simple, we almost think it's over the top, corny, cliche, theatrical, when in fact it does work. So what Jim Lohr would teach is no matter what happens in your life, you have to ask yourself a question. What opportunity does this present? Now, seems crazy, right? It seems unbelievably crazy. But what was so interesting is what I loved about it is that it changed the way I was thinking. I used to be a really negative person. And I remember when my mom died, I remember my friend who knew I was reading the book say, well, you know, where's the opportunity here? And he said it kind of in a very jaded, sarcastic way. And I thought about it and I'm like, what's an interesting thought, right? Because someone passing away is not a great thing, right? And all of a sudden I got a phone call from an ex-tenant, Daniel Babcock, still friends with him to this day, over 20 years later. And he ends up contacting me saying, I'm moving back from Massachusetts. Do you have any of your units open? I said, Daniel, we only have 3-bedroom units. That's way too much for one person. He said, yeah, that's true. And he said, all right, I thought I'd check. I didn't know if you had any other units smaller than a 3-bedroom unit because my wife and I had owned some duplexes. We hung up the phone and I thought, wait a minute. There's the opportunity. So I remember this. I called him up and I said, Daniel, I don't know if you heard about my mom. He goes, no, how's she doing? I go, well, sadly, she passed away. You were always good to my mom. You always put up her Christmas tree. You always brought her groceries in. I got an idea for you. I said, how long do you need the place? He goes, well, that's the tough thing, only like 7 months. And then my wife and I, his soon-to-be wife, Bree and I are going to be saving up for a house. And I said, take her place for 7 months. It's completely modern. She renovated the place. It's beautiful. He goes, yeah, I've been in it. I said, you can have it for 7 months free. He said, are you kidding me? I said, put it towards your wedding, put it towards your house. Awesome. Till this day, he and I keep in touch. He was a tenant. And he just recently tried to help one of my son's friends get a job. See, I had to change the way I thought, and it changed the way I behaved. Instead of sulking and saying, oh, look at poor me, I turned something that's pretty dreadful into a wonderful thing. Now, I happened to be out of the country traveling, and Dan was nice enough to invite my wife and I to his wedding, and they actually did a toast to us and toasted us and said, thank you. We would not be able to buy a house if it wasn't for our ex-tenant who allowed me to live in his mother's unit for 7 months free. And people are like, oh, wow. And that is nice, right? And I hope we all do nice things for each other. But the reason I did that is I had to change the way I think. The way we fuel our brains, it's much like the way we fuel our body. If we eat pizzas all day, we're going to get fat and sloppy and lazy. If we eat healthy and we work out, we're going to be healthier, right? It's not rocket science. The same thing happens with the brain. Let me give you another one. When we think about coachability, I remember we had a client that was really struggling with communication. They were struggling with conflict. The workload was stressful. Everybody was taking things out of context. So I started off a session with a young man in Utah who has been working at a Texas roadhouse. He has Down syndrome. And he's a greeter, and he's always in a good mood. And Down syndrome people are amazing to me. My wife is a pediatrician. When she has the news to tell a young couple, your child has Downs, I just want to tell you, they are amazing kids, and they are. And I remember playing the video. And in the video, his older brother said, I saw him do something I don't think I could have done. A woman was really struggling. She wasn't her best self. And his brother, the young guy with Down syndrome, went up to her and said, "You are just beautiful. You are beautiful. Do you know how beautiful you are?" And the woman her eyes lit up. And as his brother was narrating the story, he goes, "I don't know if I could do that. I'd be too self-conscious. What he does for people is amazing." So I played the video. I said, "How's everybody feeling?" We had over a 95% turnaround from neutral or negative feelings to positive in 5 minutes. So if this intrigues you, I want you to think about reaching out to us. Send me an email, tim@progresscoachingleader.com. We are setting up something called the Coachability Club, where employees, non-leaders, and leaders certainly can do it as well, will get a weekly lesson, a weekly challenge of what you would do. So 1 month there might be a theme of attitude or teamwork or self-awareness, and we will present a case study, and they have to respond of what they would do, what actions they would take. Here's the best part. We've set it up so their answers are automatically routed directly to their supervisor. We call it the coaching loop. Now the manager can see the insight to how his or her employees are thinking. And the way we improve our thinking will change the way we behave. If we change the way we behave, performance will improve. Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21-day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.